Alright, we're up and running. Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of action-packed amp repairing. Tonight we're going to be working on another R-115SW. These amps seem to all kind of be dying right around the same time. I get numerous requests for them, so we're going to be doing a lot of these. I know it'll get repetitive, but every once in a while maybe we'll run into something new, so let's dig right into this one and see what we got. Remember, if you like these videos, to subscribe, and you'll get a notification anytime I post a new video. So if you're working on an amp, and I know I have some amp request repairs, I'm actually hoping tonight this one won't take too long and we can actually get into a Klipsch sub 12, so we'll see. I know I say that all the time and I usually never get to them, but I'm actually starting a little early tonight, at least early for me, so we'll see what happens. But right away, looking at this one, you can see it's a common failure, and let me zoom in here real quick. Alright, hopefully it'll focus, play nice. This capacitor right here is completely lifted off of the base. Like, it was about ready to, launch like one of Tesla's new rockets. Like, you can see it almost made it there. So this guy is definitely bad, and anytime you are working on one of these R series amps, this cap always has to be replaced, always. And the reason for that is because this guy right here, this resistor, gets nuclear hot and starts cooking everything around it, so these caps just boil and die. This one has a little bit of corrosion right here on the lead of this resistor, and it's kind of covered in glue. That glue also was connected between this transistor and the resistor here, so there was like a glue bridge, and it turned brown and conductive, so that's probably where the corrosion came from. There was a current path going between the heatsink of the transistor and the top lead of the resistor, so I'm guessing that attributed to this failure. Maybe we'll find something else blown in this one, because that's kind of different. I haven't seen that before. But let's dig into it. Let's get this thing going, so hopefully it doesn't take all night. Set the hot air station to about 120°C, and we're going to start chiseling away at this glue here. It doesn't take a lot of heat, but 120°C seems to be the magic number for all sorts of adhesives and glues. I'm going to leave the camera zoomed in for a while too. We'll see how this works out. Maybe we won't be looking at the top of my head so much. But you don't want the glue to get soupy. You just got to heat it up until it gets kind of rubbery, and it'll start sticking to itself. If it gets soupy, it's actually more difficult to remove. I want it to be like rubber cement glue, like dried rubber cement, kind of flexible but easy to break. And heat control is the secret here. I mean, it's nothing special. We're just pulling glue off. You don't need, any fancy skills for that, but you do got to be able to control the heat. So this is why it's so difficult to repair anything like down in this section of the board down here, because that's all the same glue. And imagine having to get all of this glue off just to replace one component under here. I've done it before. It is not fun, and I generally just don't do it anymore. If somebody's got a broken switch or a broken RCA, I usually tell them to replace the amp, or buy another broken amp and send that to me, and I'll fix that. It's just too hard to work with. Alright. This glue was inside of this connector. That makes it a little more fun. Helps to have some fingernails when you're doing this too. Like if you let your nails grow out just a little bit, digging some of this stuff out is a lot easier. Plus you don't burn the pads of your fingers as much when you're soldering through hole parts. I'll try and get the remainder of this glue off. It probably will not be successful, but it really doesn't matter. As long as we can plug it back in, it's fine. Same with the red stuff. The red stuff, you just got to give it a little bit of heat, and it comes right off. The red stuff is a little more temperature sensitive than the black stuff. Well, just get it to the right temperature and it'll come right off. Pretty easy. I generally don't glue these connectors back on just because, I mean, they're stuck in there pretty good. I don't really see the need for this much glue. The best way is to take your tweezers and just twist them, roll, and the glue kind of sticks to itself. Sometimes you can just kind of scrub it around in there if it's being difficult. Just get it to bunch up a little bit. And once it reaches that temperature that it gets kind of sticky, it'll adhere to itself and it'll all come right off. I guess I could probably dial in like the exact temp needed for this, but I don't know. It'd take more time to figure that out than it would to just heat the glue up and pull the leads off. Alright, so we'll get those out of the way. I tuck them behind the other power cords, just like that. And now we're into the main part of the amp. Let's see what else we got going on here. I don't see any burning on the board. That's good. For the most part, it looks pretty good down in there. I know it's going to be a pain to focus. There we go. So not bad. You can see there's a bunch of glue. It's got to get removed down in here. All that glue's got to come off the board. All the caps are going to come out. We're going to recap the whole thing. We'll check the transistor, see if that's shorted. I've only found one, so that's pretty uncommon, but the main problem is this resistor's got to get replaced in all these caps. So we are going to get started on that. So I'm going to cut these caps out. I have what I call a cap map for these, which is basically just a fancy sheet of paper that lists what values go where. I am going to grab that. I can put that up on the screen maybe at the end of the video, but I think I did that in the previous one. I'm not sure. I can't remember. I'll put it up anyways though, so everybody can see what's going on. But we're gonna cut these caps out. We'll check a couple of them just to check the values. Unfortunately, all the leads on these are folded over pretty good, and it risks too much damage on the board trying to unsolder them. So I'm just gonna nip them all out, and I'll check the values of some of these ones up in here and just compare them to what I have on my little list, just to make sure that well, actually you guys can see that pretty good. There's the cap list right there. Let it soak in for a minute. BP means bipolar. The voltages are really not that important. You can go higher if you want. You can't go lower, or shouldn't go lower. But this is what I use. Alright, let's start nipping. The thing that takes the longest about working on these is cleaning out the glue. Like if they didn't slobber these things in glue, they'd be pretty easy to work on. But I replace all. Let's see, what are these? These are Hakko caps. Lovely. No clue who makes them. Doesn't sound like a top tier high quality brand to me. It sounds like these were some cheap caps from a Chinese warehouse, and that's what got installed. And this one's stuck in there with the glue. I do not replace the caps that are down by the input board. They're just too hard to get out, and generally they're far enough away from all the heat sources, and they're in the audio signal path, so they're going to last a long time. Chances of these going bad are actually, chances of any of the caps from here on over going bad are pretty slim, but you know, I replace all the ones that I can just because I don't know, it makes me feel a little better doing it that way. I mean, if you really wanted to, you could probably just replace like the two main ones and then like these that are around the resistor, and you'll probably be okay, but to me that's cutting corners when I'm doing it for somebody else. So wow, this cap, it completely launched the rubber plug out of the bottom. That's a good one. I haven't seen one like that in a while. We'll get a close-up of that in a minute, as soon as I get it cut out of here. That guy really launched. So you can see the little rubber seal at the bottom just blew right there. It is. That's the paper and foil on the inside of there and the electrolyte. Nice. Completely. These are 330 microfarad. That's the one that always needs to be replaced. Okay, let's keep snipping. I'll turn the board up like this. Maybe get a little bit better of a view if I can keep my head out of there. Sometimes you gotta cut the glue off in between them. And we're not really worried about like how friendly we're being to these or if we damage any of them. We just want to get them out of here. So you can cut the glue and be a little mean with them if you have to. Bend them around just to get them out. But snipping them is the best way to avoid any sort of board damage. One of these days I'm going to take a pair of these and I'm going to put them on my grinder, and I'm going to grind them way down so they're, you know, super thin, like almost like a set of needle nose. And it'll make it a little easier for reaching way down into some of these spots. Wish they made like needle nose nippers. That would be kind of nice. But we're chopping, and then we're going to remove the glue. And we'll just check this one really quick. That's 22. This one over here should be 22. It's kind of sad that I'm starting to remember these. The only reason I'm checking this is because there are a couple of variants in there. I don't know if they're like first revisions or what, but I have seen a couple of different configurations. I should probably try to document it so I know what's going on, but I think even if you put the values for the later variant into the original one, I don't think you're going to have any problems. They're mainly just filters. A couple in the bipolars are in the audio path, but I don't think those values are the ones that changed, to be honest. Maybe they did crossover points or something like that. Who knows? Alright, I think we're going to remove the large caps and the resistor just to get them out of the way so I can get in there a little better. Put the large tip in the Weller, if I can find it. Somebody from Weller needs to watch my videos and see how much I praise their desoldering station. Maybe they'll send me some free tips. These things are freaking expensive. But I love this tool. Like, it's one of the better tools that I have. This one does not want to come out. There we go. Give it a little preheat, help it come out. Alright, and let this guy heat up. I got some new coffee that I'm having today. It's called Jamaican Me Crazy. I've had it before, but I haven't had it for a while, and I actually like it. So while it's heating up, I'm going to have a sip. Gotta have coffee when you're working on amps. It's like almost required. And I'm not even a coffee snob or anything. I need that little bit of a boost. It keeps me going. Alright, we're at temperature. Let's pull out the big boys first. Sometimes these are kind of a pain to get out, so if you heat one lead up, melt the solder, give it a little push, see if you can break that glue. I don't know if anybody heard that, but it popped. That little pop was the glue freeing off from the board. If you do that on one leg, it makes them a little easier to get out. And I mean, you can see how much glue's on there. It's garbage. These are probably still good, but they're still that Hakko brand. How the heck do you... Somebody in the comments tell me how you pronounce that. Hakko. I pronounce it garbage. If you have those caps in your amplifier, they should come out immediately. And shame on Klipsch for allowing that garbage to be put in their amps. This one does not want to snap. So if you have one that's being difficult, and I highly recommend that you break the glue joint before pulling the cap. This is probably your second most handy tool. Flat blade X-Acto knife. Just get it down in there. And then take your favorite hammer. Mine happens to be these multi-crimpers. And just break the glue on one side. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. We're in just a little too tight. And there we go. Break one side of that glue free, and that helps tremendously with removing these caps and not totally wrecking the board. And again, I shake everything when I'm trying to desolder it. To me, it allows the through holes to get cleared a little better. I mean, this has black glue on it too. I mean, that thing's really in there. Oh, look at this. Oh man, look at how lucky we're getting tonight. Look at this. It's taking all the gnarly glue with it. Come on, keep going, keep going, keep going. Oh, this is great. This is great. That just saved a bunch of time. It's a good night tonight. It's got to be this coffee right here. It's got to be. Well, that saves some time clearing off some of that glue. I'll take that anytime it can happen. Dealing with this glue is a pain. Alright, time to burn our fingers. Let's pull the resistor. We'll measure the resistor too. See if it's toasted or still good. did receive a question from somebody on my email, and they were asking me if you can remote mount these. Like, they wanted to mount it to the plate and then run some leads up there and allow the plate to heat sink the resistor. Now, you can absolutely do that. The problem is you need a way to secure it that isn't going to fail over time as those things get hot. That's where the problem arises. So most likely you're going to have to drill a hole through the plate. You're going to have to use some sort of a metal bracket to hold it in place, and then you're going to have to put some silicone on there to seal up the hole and keep it from moving around. That absolutely is a good way to do it. It's just more work than I feel is necessary. I think just spacing it properly off the board is enough to keep these things going. So if you want to do it that way, I mean, that is probably the most preferred way, but I would say it's a little bit more overkill than is required. But feel free to experiment. If you have your amp and you're doing your own repairs, you can try whatever you want. As long as you're I'm gonna pull this transistor out too. It's in my way and I don't like it. So I'm gonna dope these legs up with a little bit of leaded solder because all of these are lead free. Again, another thing I don't understand in consumer electronics that are never going to be near your mouth. I don't know. Maybe it's for the safety of the employees in the factory or something. I don't know. Transitioning over to lead-free solder is one of the worst things the industry ever did. I mean, thousands and thousands of laptops and MacBooks and all that equipment fail because they don't have leaded solder balls on the BGAs. Like, it's just stupid. And all the Xboxes and PlayStations, like all that stuff is because they went lead free. It's terrible, if you ask me. So alright, we are almost done removing all the caps. We still have a decent amount of glue to remove. And we will continue, but it's easier to get in here now with everything removed. And if you're careful when you're taking it out, it doesn't really cause you any problems. And the reason that I'm fairly certain that this is matching my list is the two variants that I've seen are with this cap right here. Now, I have seen where there is a ceramic cap that is surface mounted onto the board, and then they put an electrolytic over the top of it. And then I've seen ones that just have the electrolytic there into the through holes. So that is how I know that there are two different versions of this. This one does not seem to have the surface mount one. Again, it's smothered in glue, so I can't really tell yet, but it appears to be not there. So we'll find out more as we start, tearing the glue out, but we got to get these last couple caps out. And, be careful when you're, working with things that are covered in glue, because you don't want to crush or cut through any of the surface mount components on the bottom. Then it's just more work, and if you don't have the parts, then you got to order them, and it's like $14 to ship them. Like, yeah, just be careful. Don't do that. And if you really have a lot of time and you're bored, you can just wiggle and break the leads. I mean, I've done that before. It works. Just takes some time. You gotta kind of jiggle them rapidly until the legs fatigue. But it works. Snip one leg and give it a little shake and a little twist, and they'll eventually come out. I prefer to cut them. It's a little bit faster. caps are out. I haven't found a good way yet to remove the glue and keep everybody, you know, in sight. Maybe I'll try and do it. Nope, that ain't gonna work. Oh, we'll try and do it on an angle. Maybe I can prop this up and use my little kickstand and. But there's no way to remove that board. There we go. It's got two little built-in screws there, like they're meant to be used for a kickstand. I don't know how stable that is. Oh, that ain't too bad. So I'll try that and see if I can get a better shot. I know it's difficult to do and difficult to see, but first let's check our resistor. Let's see how bad this is, how out of tolerance this is. I went to a new set of meter probes. I don't know where the heck I got these from, but they suck. They don't have like really nice silicone leads. They're like rubber, but they're still kind of stiff. I don't like them. Got some nice ones that I bought for use at work. I'm going to probably order the same pair of those. Well, this one is not too bad. 801. So the resistor was still somewhat usable, but you can see, I mean, it looks worse to me, but that thing is crispy. Extra crispy. So yeah, we're gonna not use that anyways. I have some of these green monsters we'll throw in there. A little bit bigger, a little bit better. These are 5 watt. I do have 3 watts, but I've decided that I'm going to use 5 watts just for a little extra headroom. Alright, well, next we're going to start plucking away at this glue. 120C on the hot air. And your favorite pair of tweezers and dental picks. It helps to be a little ambidextrous when you're doing this. Just get in there with the heat. Get the glue kind of softened up and twist it on out of there. Anywhere it touches the board, the glue's got to go. And you can, you know, if you're doing it yourself, you can cut corners. You can leave some of the glue that's not charred if it's still like yellow in color, but I don't know, why risk it? You already got the amp out. You're already working on it. Take the extra 20 minutes and get the darn glue off. If you're going to cut corners, do it up in this top section over here by this film cap, because you don't want to get too much heat on the film cap. Film caps and heat are not a good combination. They don't work very well. This little kickstand's working better than I thought. I really need to buy another set of these tweezers. These tweezers are like my lifesaver. Should tell the wife I want an extra stocking stuffer. I need a new set. Actually, my mother-in-law bought me these tweezers when she found out I worked on like electronic equipment. She got them for my Christmas, like I think 2 years ago. They're nice little tweezers. I don't know. Who would have thought a guy wanted a pair of tweezers for Christmas, huh? This glue is playing nicely today. If only every R-Series amp would be this nice. So where the glue's a little bit extra crispy, you kind of got to take your time. Make sure you get it all out. Get it heated up, you know, to where it turns into like rubber, and just take your time. And twisting the tweezers is the best way. Just kind of rolls it up along the tip, and The tweezers will be hot, so be careful you don't toast your fingers. I need to throw a screw in here. This thing keeps sliding. Alright, up to the top part of the board. Let's see if we come down just a little. There we go. So there's just a couple of little charred components down in here that have some glue on them. And again, generally these components do not go bad. I only have one amp in this series that I've worked on that I've had to do any surface mount work on, and that was the resistors that are around the large T0220 transistor. I had to replace a couple of those. They were damaged. I don't know why, but I did have to replace them. So again, down on the bottom area by the film cap, just take your time, but don't leave the heat there too long. The film caps do not like to get hot. It will damage them. And it'll be some weird value that you won't have laying around. So get as much as you can off the board. If it's still on the part, it's okay. We just want to clear it out of the electrical path where it might cause any shorts. If it's gluing two pieces together, that ain't going to be the end of the world. I don't know why they didn't use silicone. Silicone would have been a much better alternative than this crap. Silicone probably cost 13 cents more. So that's why they don't use it. Well, again, remember, these are like subsidized amps. I don't even know who makes these things. Klipsch just throws their name on the back of it. They don't make them. This is an off-the-shelf power supply from some power supply company. Let's see, there's usually some branding on it. Well, I can't decipher. Oh, here we go. Nope, that's fuses. It's got fuse info. Well, either way, it's just a 400 watt amplifier. Power supply that has the required voltages, plus and minus out, and it's got the high and low voltage and a 5-volt standby. It's basically like a fancy computer power supply. Some company makes these, and then they pair them up with, whatever devices use those voltages. So probably 20 different amp companies use this power supply. I can't even say that this amp board is unique to Klipsch. It's probably used in other manufacturers' amps too. A lot of this stuff is commonized now. This one's going to be a little hard to see as I clean off the glue around the one cap, so this will be easier for me to work in it like this and faster to get removing the parts, so it's going to be out of sight. But we're just heating this glue up, getting it off the board, getting it away from the speaker terminals, getting it away from the pads that the cap solders to. And we're just getting as much of it off as we possibly can. And this one has some of that black goop mixed in with it, so get a good bite with the tweezers and get as much of this out as possible. And I wouldn't recommend going higher on the heat either. Stay around 120°C. That seems to be the magic temperature to get most of this crap out of here without doing any damage. Yeah, if you get it hotter, the glue comes out faster, but, you know, at what expense? It comes out pretty quick now. So we're almost done here. I got just the other side of the cap and around these larger resistors over by the inductor over there. And to my knowledge, there are no schematics for these, so you kind of gotta keep an eye out for, you know, what goes where if you're taking these things apart. I kind of document everything before I dig in there, but, you know, if you're going to be pulling, these two resistors are different values. If you're going to be pulling the resistors out because you got to clean something underneath it or you got to get in there, make sure you write down what goes where, because they are different values. And I don't have it handy on a sheet of paper to share with everybody, so just keep that in mind, that if you're digging in there and you're taking things off the board, that it might be worth your while to document what came from where, what goes where. Got a little hot there, burning my fingers. Alright, I think that is it. Ow. That is it for the glue. Yeah, the board's going to be hot too after you throw 120°C on it. So make sure when you're touching the board that your fingers are somewhat clear. The speaker terminal right here got hot from there, and I touched it with the side of my pinky, you know, right in the tenderoni section, and it got me. Alright. Part 1 is done. Let's see if we can do this from a top view. Put a little light on there, and the next part is going to be pulling all the legs out from all of the caps that we took out of there. So, we got to find the caps and pull out all the bent lead sections. You can do this with, actually I'm going to do it with the solder sucker. We'll do 2 steps in one. And actually I'm going to use my smaller tip. You don't need the big tip for this. We'll use the small tip. I need to clean this thing. Medium tip, small tip. And this tip is number 2, I think. Yeah, number 2. Number 2. Those are not the right pliers. These are not the right pliers. My pliers are upstairs. The reason I started early tonight is I'm doing a 3D print and it's going to take 3 hours, and I needed to kill some time before you know, I can use that. So I'm finishing up some other projects that I had laying around. I had a box full of 3D printer parts, and I'm using my good 3D printer to repair all the broken 3D printers, and then I'm probably going to list them for sale or give them away to family or something. But either way, I need to get them completed and out of here. The more junk I get out of here, the more amps I can repair. Alright, we're heating up. My tip is in crooked. Either that or I bent it. The easiest way to do this is going to be to add a little bit of lead to each hole. And that's what I'll do. I got my thin solder. And we'll drop a little bit on each leg, heat it up, pull the leg out, and it sticks to the tweezers. If your tweezers are mildly magnetic or magnetic, or anything. You can even use a screwdriver as long as it's something that has a little bit of magnetism to it. It'll pull it out. Let them cool off a second before touching them. I've burned myself multiple times. And then we'll clear the holes. This is the easier way to do this. Sounds like my solder sucker is jammed. And of course I have nothing that fits in there. You'd think when you bought a new tip they'd give you a new cleaning tool with it. Because these things do get plugged up from time to time. Luckily old resistors and diodes work fairly well. Actually, I gotta change my cartridge is fairly full. I'm gonna change my cartridge. It's pretty full. And at the same time, I'm gonna rip my headphones off my head. I rerouted my wire for this a little bit, so it was out of the way, and it's actually more in the way now. Let's try that. So yeah, sorry about the loud bang right there. I'm sure that's gonna be plenty audible. Generally, I reuse these solder filter cartridges, but that one's full and I don't feel like cleaning it out right now while I got a stream going, so we will just replace it with a good one. And I restuff them with fiberglass and put a piece of metal in there to catch the solder. Tends to keep them alive a little longer. I mean, they're fairly cheap, but I don't know, I go through so many of these darn things. I mean, it would be an added expense that I don't need. This is the best way I've found to remove any sort of caps from Chinese boards. This tip feels like it's clogged again. Could be my little filter. That's exactly what it is, my little paper towel filter. We'll take that out for now. Since we're using a factory tip, I don't need my little paper towel filter in there. Alright, next is these two. I know I'm getting in the shadow there. I don't know if there's any way for me. I guess I can manipulate the light around a little bit and see if that helps. This little wand light luckily doesn't really get in my way, so. So these two legs here are always a pain. They're tied right into the thickest part of the ground plane. So you gotta get a little bit of heat in there to free up the legs. next. I think we are good on this side. Now we have this one here. Again, this one's on the ground plane. Give it some lead. Alright, our next 2, 3 are going to be in this line right here. 1, 2, 3. If you're trying to do this at home, I definitely would not use solder wick to try and clear these holes. I don't know if the board can take that much heat for that long. I think a bare minimum you're going to want to use is those little hand pump solder suckers. Or the old style solder suckers that have like the little squeezy bulb on the back of the like an old Radio Shack solder, so those might work. Probably like not as good as this, but close to this. Alright, those 3 are out. Where are the next 3 are going to be these 3 in a line here. 1, 2, and 3. I know this is probably boring, but everybody I do one of these repairs for, I give them this as like a blog on how I did their repairs, so I can't do a full video for one person and only a quarter of a video for somebody else. That wouldn't be cool. I want everybody to see their amp getting done start to finish. We're making good time today. We're 50 minutes in right now, and we're 3/4 of the way done. That ain't too bad. At least I think we're 3/4 of the way done. That all depends on if this thing powers up or not. We could barely be halfway done. Alright, I have 1 right there. The hardest part is not having any silk screen on the bottom of the board. If these were bottom screened, I'd be really making some time, because I wouldn't have to figure out which parts I gotta remove. Those are films, so I have that one that's in the black goo, that one, and this guy here. Alright. Looks like we got 3 more to clear, and then we can start putting the new ones on. We got lucky with that first cap and having a lot of that glue coming out with it. That was a nice little time saver there. That glue is usually a pain to get off. Make sure to keep your tip clean every once in a while. Give it a little swipe on whatever. If you're using a sponge, give it a sponge. If you're using a the copper little mesh ball or whatever, make sure you're keeping your tip clean. Alright, we got 1 cap on the side and 1 cap up in the front. So that's this guy here, which I'm blocking the light for. This one and this one. And I apologize with the focus. I don't have a remote yet, so I can't put this camera in manual focus very easily. So it goes in and out of focus on me and drives me nuts. And probably everybody that's watching nuts too. This is a very low-tech, high-tech channel. It's high-tech with the content, low-tech with the delivery of that content. Even though this is supposed to be a pretty awesome camera, these are the Logitech PT Zoom. I got it for a steal on eBay. It was broken, and by broken, really all that was wrong with it was one of the gears that controls the pan, tilt, and zoom was out of place. They said that the camera would not function. It functioned just fine. I plugged it in and it worked. It just wouldn't move. So I took it apart, fixed the gear, put it in the right spot, and now I have a fully functional, like, $500 camera. Except it sucks at focusing on what I'm working on. I think I'm going to go with a wall-mounted camera, and I'm going to come in on an angled view, shooting down on the sides. That might give a little, I don't know, at least if nothing else, it'll be an interesting view of the angle that I'm working on. I don't know if it'll be any better. I got to pick up another webcam. I like webcams for these streams. They seem to work well. They're pretty, well, they used to be cheap before COVID and everybody started working at home. Now you can't get a webcam to save your life. I'm going to just manually pull up a little glue that's blocking my cap spot down here. I'm going to try not to use heat, just because I want to clear out just this one little spot. And if I use heat, it might take more out. So, alright, there we go. All the caps are out. I can get rid of my little spotlight. And there's what we got. We have a board that is decapped. It is free of any gnarly looking glues. It's ready to be recapped. So I'm going to set this aside. Clean off my work area. By the way, make one of these things. It's just a 2x4, 2 passes on the table saw. It makes a nice little kickstand for working on plate amps. You don't have a table saw? I mean, you could easily cut that with a hand saw. You don't need a table saw to cut a groove in a piece of wood. A little bit of patience and a hand saw will do just as good. I just happen to have a table saw, so it makes it easier. Try and get all the metal off of your working surface. These little silicone pads work pretty good for that. And let's start the recap. So I'm going to try and start this way and then work my way up towards the big boys. We'll prep a resistor. If you buy resistors in bulk and you get them on one of these like belt feed things, don't cut them. Don't cut them, don't cut them. Pull them out. You need the extra length. The extra length is important when you're trying to space them off of a board. Bend them as close to the device as possible. That way you can get as much distance as possible when you're trying to put it off the board, and then that gives you room to twist it around or, you know, maneuver it wherever you want to go. And on these, honestly, you can mount the resistor on the back. And but I might do that on this one. I don't know. I'll think about it. Probably not, just because I want to keep it factory. But you can mount it on the back side of the board and just kind of space it away from. You got to make sure you clear the cutout. You can see where the cutout is because the foam has an indentation on there. So when you bend it over, it's got to kind of, you know, sit a little bit off the board. And it won't be anywhere near the MDF on the inside. So, I don't know, something to think about. Probably better to put it on this side of the board. Or actually, the ultimate would be to mount it on the plate and then just run some wires. Now, if you do that, I would crimp connections on here. I don't know if I would solder them. I would crimp them. And the reason I would crimp them, and also make sure you heat shrink and insulate these leads. But, you know, this guy gets hot, and if it gets hot and cold repetitively, it could weaken your solder joints. So I would use a crimp there. Solder would probably work, but I would feel better if it had a crimp. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to put the cap list up, kind of where you can't see it, but where I can. There's a nice glare from my desk light, but alright, so first cap that we are going to do is silk screen so small that I can't read it. So bear with me as I stick my head in here and try to figure out what it is. So that is C49. And C49 is a 4.7 microfarad bipolar 50 volt. We have these. Little magnifying glass I took out of an old LCD projector, but it is a powerful little magnifying glass. It works really well at magnifying tiny little things. I don't know what the parameters are on there, but it works good. Always check your caps too, because that one I grabbed was a 10 microfarad. We want 4.7 and 50 volts, which now we have. So the board is marked with a polarity on these. I find that wherever the cap is marked BP, typically goes to the shorter leg if there is a leg on it, and that generally is negative. I don't think it's as important on this type of stuff, but certain equipment does require even a non-polar cap to be installed a certain way. So keep that in mind if you're working on this stuff. And somebody probably will ask, so these are UVP Nichicon caps, UVP series. Unfortunately, they are only 85C rated, but it's hard to find bipolars in 105C that are cost effective enough to put into these. And the bipolars aren't really going to get hot, and they're not really around any sources of heat. Don't bend the legs. You see me struggling to hold this cap in place? Struggle. Do not bend the legs. If you try to fix your amp and you replace some caps in there, but you break your amp and you send it to me with reworked broken legs, I'm charging you double. And it's not because it's more labor, it's just because of the annoying factor. Now generally all of these I'm going to go over with the vacuum removal tool. I'm not going to vacuum them, I'm just going to use it because it's got a higher heat output. And I'll just go over each leg that's connected to the large ground pad on the bottom here. You can see this whole thing is one huge copper pour as a grounding pad. And the ones that tie into it don't really get to make a great connection because it sucks all the heat out of them. Alright, next. Next cap is C48. C48 is 100 microfarad 25 volt polarized. 2040 125. We got plenty of those. The little horseshoe again is negative. Check your polarities. The biggest mistake you're going to make when doing this, especially when you start out, is you're going to put a cap in backwards. And the amp might work, but it's not going to work for a very long time. Eventually that cap's going to get hot from being put in backwards, and it's going to pop or it's going to fail. And you're going to take your device apart and you're going to try and figure out what went wrong, and you're going to have a hard time doing it. See, this one's going to the ground pad and I can't get enough heat on it, so I'll just put a blob on there, call it good, and we'll come back and heat that up later with the big iron. I do have some red stuff that I missed, and the red stuff gets hard, so that's got to come off with hot air. I don't know if you can see it. It's right there, that tiny little blob. This is an extremely difficult angle to work at, so you're not going to see this one either. The red stuff I don't think is at risk of doing any damage to the board. I don't know what kind of glue it is. It's some sort of plastic, like polymer type. I wouldn't worry about it too much, but I'm a little OCD, so I worry about it. Alright, next cap. We're going to start from the inside and work our way up. And actually I missed desoldering one. So I got to fire on the fire up the solder sucker. I missed C54. But that's okay. Our next cap going in is going to be C50. C56 or 58? C56. The silk screen on these is really hard to read. And I know I said it before. I said I'm going to take and actually I'm going to do that when we're done. I'm going to take a picture of this board, blow it up really big, and I'm going to mark which caps are which, because that'll make life way easier for me. Instead of having to use this magnifying glass. It's a pain in the ass having to do this. That is C56, and that is a 10 microfarad bipolar, 50 volt. Yeah, it's difficult to figure out which cap goes where, because the 56 looks like a 58 because the silk screen is done so poorly on these. So it helps to do things like that. You know, if you're going to be doing multiple amps and you know, they're all going to have generally the same issues. It just saves time to do it that way. I kind of wish this board was installed in reverse. Just make it a little, or if they silk screen the bottom, that'd be nice. I know nobody does that, but it'd be nice for me. Again, you don't have to be too crazy on this step. We're gonna go over it and touch up all the joints. Just make sure that you're putting the right parts in and your polarities are good. Next cap, C39. 39 is 47 microfarad, 25 volts. And that's an odd one. Usually the 47s are 50 volts, but this guy calls for 25. And double check your values. Make sure it's not 4.7. Sometimes I screw up. Put them in the wrong bin. Since it's not crazy late yet, and I know my wife had plenty of sleep today, I'm going to do a audio test as well as a test on the scope. That way I can only get yelled at a little bit. And she generally doesn't yell at me, but still. Making a bunch of noise when it's late definitely doesn't score you any points usually. Alright, get this one out that we missed. I'll turn that guy back off. We'll come back to him later. Alright, next cap. Next cap is C44. C44 is 100 microfarad, 25 volts. Double check polarity. Double check cap. We're good. It's always enjoyable when these amps are not having major issues and I can kind of just run through them, and you know, it's I don't know, I find it somewhat relaxing. I know that sounds weird, but to me this is a million times better than sitting in front of a TV, exercising my mind a little bit, not just vegging out to nothing. Nothing against people that enjoy, watching their episodes. I like watching some shows and stuff, but to me, this is more fun. I don't know. I'd rather use my brain. Using my brain makes me more tired than vegging out. I do like playing video games though, but when I have amp repairs going on, I can't do that. But I do like, actually I was a very avid EverQuest player. I'm sure like maybe only 3 people that watch these videos will even know what that game is, but it was basically the game that started online gaming. And it was heavily addictive. I have 500 days of my life invested in playing that game, and I don't regret it for a second. Alright. C69 is 10 UF, 50 volts. Yeah, I like that game. It was challenging. It's still one of the hardest MMO games to play. I did eventually switch over to playing WoW. I like playing that game. But every once in a while I'll still log back into EverQuest and run around there for a little bit just because I have a lot of time tied up into it. I'm too many expansions behind now. I can never play again. I was in some of the top rating guilds on there, and if I got into it again, I would want to raid, and I can't do that. That's one of the things that I like about WoW. I can go away from WoW for, half a year, get back into it, and I can still, gear up a little bit and raid. The endgame content is way more fun than just running around the world doing a bunch of goofy, tasks and quests. But the problem with EverQuest is you have to get keys and, do all these, different quests for access to certain areas, and some of them things take weeks. I don't have weeks to invest anymore in a game. So unfortunately, my EverQuesting days are probably over. Alright, we got a 4.7 50 volt for C1 bipolar. I think I don't know, it's kind of sad, like when you have a game that is as big as it was and as popular as it was, that it can't like dynamically be updated for, newer style graphics and, all of the latest hardware. It would have been nice to, see that continue basically indefinitely. And I mean, it's still going strong. There's still a lot of people that still do play it, but I think the biggest lure away was, when Sony sold the rights to it, that kind of killed off half the fan base because a lot of people disagreed with what the new company was doing. And the other part of it is it was just getting old. Like the graphics and everything were outdated. People wanted new, fancier things that ran on better hardware, and I think that's what kills any of these games that come out. That's why everybody buys the new PlayStation every time it comes out. The graphics are way better, even though they're nowhere near as good as PC, which that's a whole debate in itself. Like, why would you spend $500 a year or every 2 years for some fancy console when you could play better graphics and most of the same titles on a computer for around the same price? C42 4.7 50 volt bipolar. So that's my video game rant. And most of that just stems from, like, I was always a PC gamer. I never really got into the consoles. If you only need 5, let's say 10 buttons on some of the new controllers, you only need 10 buttons to play a game. It's not really that hard, is it? You play a game with that requires a keyboard, and you got 26 keys that can all be mapped to different commands, plus number keys, mouse combinations. Now you really got something that's challenging. Again, that's my personal take on it. I'm sure everybody's got an opinion on why they like what they like on their respective systems, and hey, that's cool. That's my opinion, though. C54 is next. C54 is 22 microfarad 50 volt polarized. Checking polarity, make sure we're in right. And we are. This is one of the ones that goes to a ground pad, so don't worry about making it super nice yet. We will hit them all and make them nice. I like to bend them over too, just to kind of get them out of the heat zone. Just bend them until they touch something. And if you really want to, you can put a dab of silicone on them when it's all said and done. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. Depends on if I feel like cleaning out my little silicone syringe. C30 and C29, I believe those are the same. Yeah, those are both 4725s. Polarized 47, 16, 47, 25s. I'm getting low on these. Time to place another cap order. I go through a ton of these little caps. Check that we are at the right polarity. We are soldered in. Now, once you get a whole bunch of these in there, the legs are going to start getting in the way. Just push them out of the way. I don't have to look nice. Nobody's going to know that you bent these leads because we're going to cut them all. That's the only time it's okay to bend leads. You heard it from me. When you're pushing them out of the way because you got to solder a component in. But then right after you're going to cut them off and they're going to be straight. So bend away. Again, they're checking polarity because in a couple of these spots they're actually back to back. So and it doesn't hurt to just take a moment and just look. Make sure that your polarities are correct. Like I said, I have made mistakes before. It sucks. It's hard to find. So do yourself a favor and just be diligent on how you're doing it. Alright. And make sure you're installing your cap straight too. These two will get a little bend. And we're getting to the home stretch here. I'm going to do this one way in the back. I call that C by R40 because it's not labeled. And C by R40 is 22 microfarad, 50 volts. I only need one, not three. And there is a label on there. Actually, I'm not sure if that label is for the diode or for the cap, to be honest. We're going to say it's for the cap. And then I'm going to go grab one of my shelf amps just to verify so I'm not providing wrong information. But the negative on this cap, on the capacitor, that's by R40, which is the only one way down here at the end by itself. I'm going to say the stripe points towards the center of the amp board. And hold on a minute, I'll tell you. That is correct. The stripe points towards the center. So the little plus that is on the board is correct. Alright, next we have our FET. And I think I threw our FET away. But luckily he's right there on the top. So we're going to scrape the glue off of this without cutting our fingers. I can hear my dog coming. We're not going to take a break today, though. The dog's going to wait. Alright, let's check this real quick. Let's see if it's shorted or acting weird or... Yep, here comes the dog. I heard her jump off the bed. So we have no shorts to the legs. That's good. Let's do a quick resistance check. Make sure there's nothing that throws an alarm. And we're good. My dog went to the vet today. And she gets a little crazy when she has to go to the vet because she got attacked by another dog. And we had to take her to the pet hospital because she had to get stitches in her. Her mouth got ripped open from the other dog biting her. Kind of sucks, but she hates going to the vet now because she had to go in for the surgery and screwed her all up. I think she has PTSD from her dog attack. I gotta make a path for her to get in. Hold on real quick. She didn't want to come in. She just wanted to say hi. And yes, my dog is more important than muting my microphone for a minute, so gotta say hi to my dog. Man's best friend. Until somebody actively follows this channel and becomes my best friend there, the dog will be a priority. Alright, C19 and C80. 22, and I believe C19 is also 22. Where is C19? 2250. I need to put that list in order. That would probably save a little bit of time. A lot of things I need to do. Whether or not I'm going to actually do them, that remains to be the question. These you want to kind of space them away from the FET. The FET doesn't get that hot. The resistor is almost always the culprit on these, but just don't lay them right up against the FET. And we're still hoping that FET is good. There could be some issues with it that we don't know about yet. I will bend these. Well, this one I will bend over. The other one I'm not going to bend. Alright, we are almost to the point. Let's see what we have left here. We have the cap that always goes boom, we have the resistor, and we have the two big boys. So we're going to put the two big ones in. And the two big ones are 1000 UF 80 volts. And I can't ever remember where I put those. Yeah, here they are. And I am running low on these. Unless this is overstock. Is this okay? Nope, that's 100 volts. Huh, okay, well interesting. The 100 volt ones are the same size, just a little bit taller, so if I run out of 80 volts I can use the hundreds. Good to know. Pro tip. Check your polarity on these. Make sure you get these in. Now these are really high quality caps. They're a tier 1 UPJs, Nichicons. I mean, you can tell the difference. I mean, the same diameter, but this is just a bigger cap. It weighs more. Like everything about it just says, "Hey, I'm better than you." They're both rated for 105C, but this is just a higher quality cap. I'm just gonna lightly tack one leg in, square it up to the board so that the little rubber seal on the bottom's touching the board. And then this other leg you're really not going to get soldered in. And we're just going to, temporarily put them on there. Again, double, triple check your positioning of them. Make sure that they're installed right. And I'm just blobbing some solder on there. We'll heat it up and we'll solder them in with the solder sucker. Alright, resistor time. So I'm just bending the leads to get it in there. And I'm putting it in until just the tips of the leads are through, like they would be if you installed them and cut them. And the reason I'm doing that is because we want to get this spaced as far up on the board as we can. So, leave enough so that you get a fillet around there. But we don't want to cut these leads. Alright. Now we can see it is nicely spaced off the board. It's a little bit close for comfort on that FET, so we'll just kind of bend it out of the way a little bit. And you can put a little blob of silicone, right in between the lead and the heatsink of the FET to, keep them from touching. But it's not going to touch. I mean, you'd have to drop this thing probably 20 times and, turn the base up to max and leave it on its side before you'd really have to worry about that coming down and contacting it. We got one more cap. What am I doing here? We have the 330 16 volt cap. And I don't know what this powers. So I have I got some big guys now. I used to use these UVZs or UVYs, and they're good. They work fine. But I got the UPS series in these. They're a little bit bigger, but I like the UPS series, so those are the ones I'm going to use. And this guy, I'm going to put them in there. And I'm going to grab, I was going to grab my little wooden toothpick tool, but I think I use that for mixing epoxy, so I am kind of out of luck on that. I don't like that. Here. We'll use a larger toothpick. Nope, that's too big. I don't like that. Let's try this other dental pick. We're going to, well, I'll pull it out. We're going to roll these cap leads. I want to make sure that they're spaced away from the cap. Here, we'll use the leg of this diode to do it. So we'll just look at which way it installs and which way you want to bend it. And get a nice little bend on there, but keep them away from the bottom of the cap. Like, I used the leg of this diode, which is a pretty thick leg, to space those. And then what I can do is I can install it. I'm installing this one on its side. And the reason that I'm putting it on its side is because I want to twist it and lay it flat up against the board and get it away from this resistor. Just because this resistor gets hot and it cooks this cap. That's the main failure on these amps. So if we get this cap away from that resistor, we're helping. And you know what? We can, even bend the resistor a little bit further away from some of these other ones. But laying this guy on its side really helps get it out of the way. I don't know if it helps, with noise or any of that stuff on this amp, but it really helps. With the heat problem. Oh, look at my dog over here. Oh, yeah, you want to go outside, don't you? Well, go lay down. And as soon as I get this amp tested, I will give you a treat, and I will take you outside personally. Alright, let's heat up the big solder sucker. Let's turn the little one off. Turn our iron off. And we will clip all these leads. And again, these are customer amps. I still have a whole shelf full of these that I need to go through. So yeah, maybe I won't make videos on those. I don't know. If I have any regulars, or anybody watching, put a thing in the comments if you'd like to see me continue going through these and repairing more of them. Let me know. If you think it's going to get boring, doing the same thing over and over again, let me know that as well, and maybe I'll just do those off camera. Those are ones that I'm gonna just sell for somebody, mainly for people who want to do DIY. I throw them up on eBay, and if you're building a DIY sub from like one of the forums, like DIY Audio or HT Guide or something like that, these, most people want to buy a Bash 500S. Well, this is a great alternative to a Bash 500S. So I don't know what the Bash 500Ss are going for, but I know that you can probably pick up one of these that I would sell for a lot cheaper. So keep that in mind if you're doing some DIY stuff. Alright, let's get some light in there. And we're taking the solder sucker and we're just using it to dump heat onto the board to make sure that we got good solder joints. We're doing the big caps, and I just swirl it around the leads. This big pad here that the resistor goes to, slowly just fill it up with solder, but basically like your TIG welding. Just get in there, give a little bit of solder, take it off. And then for these cap leads, we're just going to go through. We're not going to suck on them. We're just going to swirl it around and just make sure that we got enough heat to get a good solder joint on these ground planes. And we're going to do that to every single one of them on here. And what this does is it's just making sure that, anywhere where we made a joint, that we're getting excellent contact. And you really need the higher heat. Oh, we forgot a cap. See, good thing we're double checking our work here. You can even hit some of these other ones. These two look like they're supposed to be isolated. It's hard to tell, so I'm going to resolder those individually. They're probably connected on the top side of the board, but little things like that. Just go through, make sure you're getting good joints. Doesn't hurt to do some of the ones you didn't even solder on. That's a grounded one right there. That guy I don't think we removed. That looks like a factory one. This guy we did. We did miss a cap right here. So we're going to do that one. And this one over here I don't think is populated. Well, maybe it is. C47. Yeah, I think we did do that one. That one's got to go back into. So we missed two caps. C47 is 100 UF 25 volt. So we'll get those in. Let me clear this hole here real quick. This is another one of those grounded holes. So let's do C47, 100 UF, 25 volts. We will put that one in. And so some of these are not populated. Like this guy up here is not populated from the factory. Why? I don't know. Oh, looks like I still have... It did not clear that hole. I didn't get enough heat in there. This is one of the pains of working with these extra thick grounding planes. Check your polarity. Make sure you get it in there good. Oh, my iron is cold right now, so we will use the big boy to put this guy in. No problems. I can't get it close enough to the board, so we will snip the leads. And we'll solder him like we did the rest. Alright, one more cap. One more cap and we can test this beast. Which one did we miss? We missed C54. C54, 22 microfarad, 50 volt. And that's going to happen. But if you're paying attention to your work, you will catch your misses and mistakes. And everything will be good. Alright, last one, and then we're good to hook this bad boy up and do a little test. We'll do a visual test, and then we will do a audio test. And then by then, my dog will be ready to go outside. I'll take a break, and I'll probably come... What time is it? Oh yeah, it's only 11:40. I'll come back with another video. I'll grab a sub 12 or sub 10, whichever one I have on the shelf. I've had a few people asking about that, and I'll do one of those. Get this bad boy just kind of tacked in place. Make sure we have enough room to allow them to bend. Well, these amps you rarely ever have to check the fuse on. The fuses rarely ever go bad in these. The power supplies rarely ever go bad in these. Alright, let's make sure we got the right one. We did. I'll clean the board later. You don't need to watch me clean the board. I use isopropyl alcohol. Check the polarities on all the caps again really quick. Good, good. Doesn't matter, good. Good, good. He's good. That one is good, 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 good. Big one is good. Other big one is good. Good, good. and that guy over there is good. Alright, all the polarities are good on all the caps that are important. Let us hook this up and see what happens. This uses a standard plug, that's good. Let's get the bench ready for a test, put some tools away. Oh yeah, hour 40, that ain't too bad. I mean, I wish I could get these down to, 45 minutes, but I don't see that happening. I have not achieved warp speed yet. Alright, let's get our little... So I'm not going to hook up any output to this. We're going to turn the gain all the way down. It was at 11. Now I understand why it blew up. We're going to put it to on. Phase will be 0. That doesn't really matter. We will give it a... let's start off low. We'll give it a 25 hertz input. Nice, rich, deep bass frequency. And I'm going to feed this into my little battery scope thing. The Quimot. Whatever the heck that means. We're feeding it a sine wave. Polarity doesn't matter. Polarity does not matter. Alright. Make sure our volume is down though. We don't want to send full volume into our little Chinese oscilloscope here. Let me turn off the overhead so we can see it a little better. Alright, we're on. Come on, camera, be kind to me. Well, you guys can see that. I know the camera's trying to focus on the top of the amp. I can't get it to go on there. That's okay. Alright, let's give it current limited power first. Actually, we ain't gonna give it no power without a power plug. Stand by. Gotta get the power plug plugged in. Gotta find my power plug. I have my trimmed lead plug. Where is my good tester plug? Probably got borrowed for something, as most of my plugs do. Oh, I got a new one. We will use a new plug until I can locate my little shorty bench plug. Alright. It's got juice. We're at 110 volts. We can see the scope, current limit on. It's going to flash a few times and freak out. That's normal. And let's give it some volume. Well, we got a sine wave, but that doesn't look good. Doesn't look good to me. Could be because there's no load on it. But there's noticeable ripple in that sine wave. It's not clean. I don't know. I think you guys can see that. It's not a clean line. It's all jagged and gnarly looking. So that might be because there's no load on it. Let's put a load on there and see what happens. I don't like that. To me, that's not good right now. Might mean that there's actually an additional issue with this amp. The resistor's not that hot. Alright, we will give it our resistive load. I'm hoping that I have enough to where I can clip down here, because I hate clipping onto my resistors. The clips don't stay. Alright, let's see what happens now. Oh, it's still still a very jagged signal. I don't know if that's this guy freaking out or the signal getting interrupted is the current limiting kicking in. So when it reaches a current limit, it'll reset the amp. That's why you're seeing that little just for the heck of it. Let's give it full power. So we still have the jagged lines on there. It's not a clean signal. Phase does not affect it. The low pass, so let's turn up our frequency a little bit. Let's go to, yeah, it doesn't matter, we're at 36 hertz now. Still a very jagged symbol or signal. I'm gonna verify this on my other scope, but what I am gonna do is I'll take a little break. I'll let my dog out, give my dog a snack, and so we made it through the first part of this. We brought the amp back to life, but now we have another outlying issue where we're not getting a clean signal on this amp. So I'll make a separate video for this because this seems like an interesting topic that somebody might not want to watch a whole repair just to get to this information. So we'll go through that in the next video, which I will start in a little bit. I'm going to take a break from now. If you like watching this repair, please remember to subscribe and like these videos, and I will be back.